You're away, Ray?
Alright, you lovely lot. Welcome back to NE1's Mental Health Podcast with me, Ray Elliott, and my good pal, Sam Warner. How are we, Sam?
I'm good, thank you. Blessed to be here on this day. My microphone's playing up a little bit. Hang on. Yeah, all good. Beautiful sunshine, lovely people. We can't complain. It's a good time to be alive, isn't it?
Suitably caffeinated.
I'm drinking cold coffee. I've had 2 coffees this morning, yeah. Shakes.
I'll tell you what I haven't asked you for a little while. Your Geordie accent. What, you got any new sayings that you've been learning?
I've not got anything, Ray.
Come on,
I've not got anything.
Come on.
I feel like I'm doing an injustice to the Geordies, man, because I do it at home. My missus, she says I sound like a Mackham. Her mum says I sound like a monkey hanger.
Hartlepool.
Yeah, I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am.
He's just lost in the northeast.
I am. I'm loving it.
Well, we're delighted to be joined by Craig, Graham, and Trevor, or Ice Guys, as you sometimes refer to. Yeah.
Yes.
Nice guys, ice guys. Thanks for coming on. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm going to hand over to you guys to give a little bit of an introduction as to who you are, how you know each other, what you do. Over to you.
How the Ice Guys came.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Trevor Dudgeon. Sorry, my name's Trevor Dudgeon. I'm 39, just turned, father of 2 children, and currently in recovery for gambling addiction. I met both Graham and Craig coming through Gamblers Anonymous, and that was back in March 2021. Since then, 2 years gamble free.
Congratulations.
3
Absolutely,
years
yeah.
sobriety, and never touched a drug for in excess of 5 years now.
Fabulous. Mate.
Awesome.
So,
More
yeah.
power, Graham. More power, Trevor.
Thank you. What brought me to cold water therapy? These gents, Graham and Craig, we were part of a football team called George Street Football Club, which was founded by one of our friends, Dan, who was also in recovery. And it was a group of people that were in some form of recovery, whether it be drugs, alcohol, drink, sex. They all formed a team. We were part of it and got invited down to cold water therapy. And since then, obviously, our relationships prospered. We found the benefits of cold water, although I was the last one to join with them, and never looked back. I've been going in, I'd say, since April last year. It was very much consistently, and then I thought I was becoming a bit of an addict to that as well. So I had to peel it back a bit, but so much benefits from it.
Yeah.
Absolutely tremendous, and the full camaraderie around it regarding the community spirit and the health benefits and the reset that I get from it. I've been able to invite my children, my family down into it, friends that wouldn't even think about it.
It's wonderful.
And
isn't it?
it's
Yeah, that's
had
amazing.
a massive impact on my life.
Yeah, imagine for those kids, your kids, to grow up around that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as opposed to so many other things that, you know, I was exposed to. Maybe it sounds like you were.
Yeah.
That's something, isn't it, that the benefits of that are going to reap in the future. Oh, wow.
Completely different, like
Yeah,
from
yeah.
my childhood to, like you say,
Yeah.
my children now, and what they're seeing and witnessing from what I did once upon a time. Yeah, you cannot beat that.
It's powerful stuff. Gents, do you want to give us a little introduction as to...
Go on, then, I've got the mic. I'm Graham Dodds. I'm 37, just turned last week. And like Trev rightly said, I met Craig and Trevor at the Gamblers Anonymous meeting, and I attended that meeting. I'd been trying to get clean, sober and gamble free for 10 years, and I couldn't do it. Relapse after relapse, rock bottom after rock bottom, and then I hit the mother of all rock bottoms. And I think it was a Sunday. I messaged Craig early hours, and it was something along the lines of, drink, drugs and gambling have killed me, because I'd messaged the Samaritans and I didn't want to be on this world anymore. I did attempt that, and luckily I made it, and I'm here. And the very next day, Craig followed through his word and dragged us to a meeting. I probably wasn't of any fit state, but I made it that meeting, and I've gone to that Monday night meeting ever since.
Good on you. Man.
But I also attended a Cocaine Anonymous meeting on a Wednesday, and that's just been my routine, is Monday, Wednesday. I was already part of the George Street football team, and when the captain said, let's try the cold water, and I don't think it's any coincidence that the combination of one, arresting all three addictions, because if I try to stop gambling, I would always leave the door open to drink and drugs, or if I try to stop the drugs, I'd leave the door open to gambling and drink. I never wanted to give up all three, because I'd always identified life as doing all three. It's just so open. You see it everywhere you go. It's on every advert, like gambling. So I never wanted to fully concede to all three. I already felt some sort of weakness as to waving the flag in the first place. Yeah. I had this like macho man mentality, and it wasn't until I did finally admit that I had a problem with all three, combined with the cold water and obviously connection. That was the turning point in my life, and since that day I've been drink, drug and gamble free for over 18 months now, and like
amazing.
It's been amazing. It's a different life.
Power to you, man.
And what Trevor was just saying there, like literally last Sunday, we're in the sea together celebrating Father's Day, and our kids are at the side watching us, and Trev says, "Look at this! Like, this is Father's Day, and this is like the life we're giving them, and sort of the impressions and of how to live the life now. It's totally different to what we grew up to.
Yeah, and
it's more powerful. Yeah, sorry, Ray. What is more powerful than that?
Aye.
Once you've harnessed that and you understand that as a man, you know, when we're, like you say, Graham, going through all those, I mean, we'll get into backgrounds and all that, but like whatever our identity is and the culture, and like you say, fucking it annoys me when I'm watching football and every advert is gambling. It's like, what do you think the young male culture is going to do if this is what you're steered towards? But to get to a point where you have to know when you're looking at them kids from the ocean that you're changing the world. That's changing the world. Yep. That's changing the world, brother.
It's a different outlook for them, isn't it?
And that's the really important thing is, because you've come an awful long way. Obviously, you know, been through it, and it's a difficult process. But I have those moments where you sit and you go, you know what? Look at this. This is it. This is it. And you know,
it's what life's for, isn't it?
Sam, you're great at doing that, and I've said this before. You often say this to me, like, this is, you know, these moments that we talk about. Those were the days. These are the days, you know, and it's really important to sit there and go, actually, let's stop, look around. These are the days that, you know, in I think that's a really powerful thing to realise how far you've come, what you're actually achieving to keep you going in that direction. No, it's powerful stuff, man. It's powerful stuff.
And what about you then, Craig?
So I'm Craig. I'm 34. I've got 3 children, plumber by trade, and I'm entering my 3rd year into recovery from gambling addiction. I initially tried to stop gambling when I was 24. Thought I'd cracked it, you know, and it led to a further 7 years of destruction, really. And I think it wasn't really until I fully surrendered to the addiction itself and said, look, I'm going to, you know, accept that you've got a hold of us, but you'll not be getting any more of my money. That's when I decided to change my life for the better. Started to do cold water therapy, running, just basically looking after my own mental health and my own body. Educate myself, trying things that I never thought I would ever do, breath work, mentioned before, yoga, just stuff in general that I used to look at people and laugh, be very judgmental, and I find myself being the total opposite now. And I've said this many times to the lads, like, I'm a firm believer in fate and butterfly effects, and I feel like I had to go on this journey to be in the position of doing like podcasts to help other people that are in addictions and bringing people to the rooms and whatever else it may be. I feel like that's my, I'm going to say ikigai, because it's basically a Japanese saying, and it means your purpose in life. And I feel like that's my purpose, is to help people now. And I'm just, like you say, you don't really give yourself enough credit for the stuff you've done. And when I look back at what I have done, it's amazing.
Well, so I'd like to say, you know, we joke a little bit about our judgments and that, and we've done a podcast earlier today where Ray talked about like the typical sort of Geordie lad who's tough, no chink in my armour. And as we talked to you, Craig, specifically, you got shaved head, big beard for the listeners, tattooed, you know. But to hear somebody like you say, you know, I'm not casting those judgments out there anymore, you know, like that is such a powerful thing. What is interesting to me is, you said it, was it 27, 24? 24. So what was it that came your way that inspired you, that you started to think about those? What you mean? Because you essentially talked about just doing something physical, whether it be running, the cold water. How did you come across those things? What inspired you? What triggered that?
So when I first went in, I don't think I truly wanted it for myself. It was for like my family, you know, which obviously isn't a bad thing, but I just mean like I didn't think I wanted to give everything up. So when I hit 31, I remember clear as day, I was like literally staring at the walls in my living room, and I was just sick of being a hamster on the wheel. And I went, I either do something now, or I'm never going to do something, or I'm going to do something that I probably will end up regretting or not knowing about. And I remember I walked upstairs, and obviously it was the hardest thing ever to do, to tell my partner that I'd hurt her, but at the same time I needed to do it to change. And then I suppose when I was open to change, that's when the opportunities came about with the cold water and the running. And then I don't know, like everyone's recovery is different, but I feel like you pick little things up on the way that attach themselves to you. And running was one for me, because running down the coast, you see the beautiful views, nature, and then you get to finish off a dip, and then you're killing two birds with one stone. And I just feel like everything that I'm sort of doing now is necessary to my recovery. And like breathwork's not for everyone, cold water's not for everyone, but it works for us three. So, you know what I mean?
It's a really powerful point, and what I find great about you guys sitting here and breaking down those barriers and talking openly. As somebody, you know, I lost my mum actually died as part through an alcohol addiction, and that point that you said before, where you had to really just have that honest conversation with yourself and go, actually, yeah, I am an addict and it is getting too much. You've got to reach that point. Sadly for my mum, she couldn't, and you know, it doesn't matter how much we tried. And you know, they say you can lead a horse to water, and you can try, but you've got to want to do that for yourself. No, not other reasons. You've got to want to do it for yourself, and you've got to want that change, and then change will happen, and things will happen for you. But it's quite often the hardest thing to do. Actually, look in the mirror and go, yeah. It's me. Yeah, you know, you hear a lot of people where they'll say, oh, it's this one, and if he hadn't have done this, or if she hadn't have said this, or if this hadn't happened in my life. But when you really boil it down and you look at the common denominator, often it's you. And we've mentioned this on other podcasts where I've done a lot of soul searching over the years, and I've had to look in the mirror and go, you know what? That is me, and I don't like it, and it's ugly, and I've got to work on it. And if I don't, it's going to cost us me relationship, my family, everything, really. And it's the hardest thing in the world to do. Admit that you are the issue, and then work on it. And working on it, it's tough. It's not easy, is it? You boys will know exactly that. It's not just one day you wake up and you go, right, I want to change. That change. And I think you all three, you mentioned it about giving up that part, although it's a flaw in your personality and it's an addiction. Giving up that is sometimes difficult, because you don't really know who you are anymore, because you feel that is part of you. You know, I've had it, I still wrestle with it at the moment. Like, I feel I can't get everything right in terms of gym, diet, drinking. You know, I always feel like I've got one flaw. I've got this theory that human beings, like, we're fatally flawed, like where we've got to have,
like all or nothing.
Yeah, we've got to have some sort of flaw in our character. I think, and for me, like, if I get a couple of them right, the other thing rears its head. Like, the diet will go out the window, and I'm eating pouch and chocolate at daft o'clock at night, and I'm like, what is it? Why can't I just be this perfect, clean living person?
I think it's interesting, though, that everybody here, I mean, you guys are all sort of late 30s, coming up 40s. Ray, you're late 30s. I'm in my 40s. It's also there's a level of maturation happening. We're getting a bit older. We've talked a little bit about podcasts again, Craig. What I ask you there is, like, it's one thing when that revelation stirs in you, when you do get that little bit older, because I'm sure everybody here has got mates who are still spinning in the wheels in the mud, still fucking causing havoc and chaos. Yeah. But luckily for us in this room, we've all had that internal introspection where we're going, shit, I don't want this anymore, staring at the wall, whatever it might be for you. You were in New Zealand in the middle of nowhere. You know, I was in a state fucking... We've all got that moment, luckily for us, which stirs something. And we were also lucky to live in a time, I believe, where we're exposed to, if your frequency is aligned to it, the documentaries, the podcasts, the positive movement that's out there. You know, and for me, that was huge, like hearing the right conversation at the right time. Yeah. Men exposed them, you know, Joe Rogan back in the day was an early one for me. Mm-hmm. Just stumbled across him. And I just happened to listen to him and another UFC guy talk about childhood, right? And how there was a violent childhood, there was drug addiction. And as we mentioned a minute ago, Trevor, when the kids growing up, what do they see? But what I saw was this big, burly, lumpy fucking menace of a man being absolutely open, vulnerable, talking to Rogan for 3 hours, right? And I was like, fucking hell, although they're in America and he's from a ghetto or whatever it is like that, I've lived something similar to that. I've experienced that. I've felt like nobody saw me. I've felt like I've acted out. I've been violent. I've been chaotic. And then Rogan's telling this guy, you know, yeah, we had to flee in the night. You know, my dad used to hit me mum and I'll never forget seeing him and hearing it. And these two guys talking was like, wow. And then from there, I heard another podcast and then I was seeking out more sort of like men like me being vulnerable, and then it leads you to, oh, and this guy, he goes running early in the morning, he gets up early and just has 5 minutes journaling, and this guy goes in the cold water, and then fucking, right, I'm going to try this stuff, and I'm going to, wow, what an empowering thing. Eh? I
just want to say, like, I feel like us three personally are making like waves in this sort of area, whether that be when meetings, I don't think the meeting's been as strong as it has been since we've sort of entered, and maybe it's because we are being so open and people are realising, God, these, you know, macho men are being open about their struggles and stuff, and then we all start running and people want to run and people want to come in the sea, and it's just like, I'm not saying we're changing the world, but we're changing.
Yeah, but you are, Craig. I think you are.
You know what I mean?
Lads like you, right? All three of you lads. I'm looking at you lads now. You are you're burly lads. You're lads as the broader culture would understand it. You're lads. And when you see a lad step up, take responsibility and say, do you know what? I ain't got everything right, and I'm not the fucking, you know, whatever that stigma is we have to create. Who's the toughest lad in the bar, or who's the fucking maddest lad in the street? Whatever. You know, we can still have those tendencies and have that crack and banter. Ray and I do talks. We go on all over the country, all over the UK, talking to construction sites.
It's how Trevor and I met, actually.
Right.
He was at one of the talks.
So there you are. So I found absolutely, whether you're in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England, South, North, East, West, wherever it is, it's lads like us. If you do something, if a wild lad all of a sudden can tame and show that it's okay, man, I can, you know, I'm still me. I can still have the crack, the banter, and all the rest of it. But I'm compassionate now. I understand we're all fighting a battle that we don't know about each other, and it is such a powerful thing for other lads like us, especially. I think.
Go on.
Sorry. I think for me, I was brought up in a culture where a lad was a lad, and therefore emotions wasn't a thing, vulnerability wasn't a thing. So to grow up with that mindset that it just had to be all right, like I didn't know who to talk to, didn't know who to turn to. Didn't even realise I was in addiction until it was pointed out to myself about the shit that I was doing on a day-to-day basis, or the things I was getting up to, the things I wasn't doing because of these addictions, and the chaos that I was causing around them. And it wasn't until it was pointed out to us that I realised that I was an addiction. And then, like you were talking about earlier on about the vulnerability, but also about the working on yourself. And then there's so much shame that's surrounded by that. For men in particular, you just feel shame to try and to put yourself in that category, so to speak, that you have got an addiction, and trying to get through that barrier and working through that and working on yourself and finding like-minded men around you and filling your circle with that sort of what's the word I'm looking for?
Growth mindset. You like perspective. You know, it's empowering, isn't it? You know, to think, because we're all trapped in our own heads, right? I don't care what anybody fucking says. If I roll up here in my Bentley with me fucking 9-bedroom house up in fucking Pontyland or wherever, we are still trapped in our own skin, behind our own eyes, as we mentioned before the pod. Information being beamed into your head 24/7 all day. Comparisons, competition. You know, all dressed up as virtue and hashtag. I'm a great guy, and I'm, you know, here's the best. Fucking here's me. It's such a lot. And when you are in the company of other people who you know have lived a similar path, are willing to face it, and then start going forwards, so powerful.
Something that I find interesting and something I really struggle with, and I don't know if you'll agree with this, but in the Northeast, and it's not just the Northeast, it's the UK, it's probably worldwide, those things that you were talking about, the addictions, the gambling, sex, drink, drugs, one thing I really find is difficult is it's really celebrated. Especially, you know, we're from a construction background. You'll go on a construction site on a Monday, right? You could have been out, obliterated, pissed yourself in a bar, had a fight outside, woke up in a stranger's house, and it's like, listen, lads, what have you got up to on the weekend? You could be absolutely in a world of turmoil that I actually found myself in. You know, I'm crippled with anxiety, and you know, of all the madness you're involved in, but it's so celebrated.
It's accepted.
It's accepted, and that's why sometimes I think people don't even realise it's such an issue. And for people like yourselves to go, yeah, it is an issue, and by the way, I'm hurting, not myself, but everyone around us, and stand up and take accountability for it. It's a difficult thing because...
It's almost glorified.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
it is.
For me, the football factory,
Yeah.
that was what led me to trying my first line of cocaine.
Really?
Because I used to enjoy going to away days,
Yeah.
and then I'm watching the football factory, like Danny Dyer, blame you for my addiction. It was so... I was always quite a fantasist growing up. I would get lost in films and wanting to be like them and what have you. But watching the football factory, it was like a turning point where it was so glorified and it was cool. And then I'd watch The Business, and I'd watch it on repeat, watching the scenes with the cocaine, and it was made to be... This is what you do. You grow up, you go out on the lash with the lads, and it was celebrated. It was, and it was so culturally acceptable. But at the end of the day, it's a classy drug, and I was so naive to it when I first tried it.
Yeah.
But just going back to what you were touching on, like I used all of that as a mask to escape what I was truly feeling. So if I worked away, they'd be like, "Oh, here's the big Geordie lad." And I'd live up to this bravado of necking pints and sniffing coke and playing the bandits. But I was fucking hurting inside, and I didn't want to be this person. And it wasn't until I'd go missing for 3 days, because I wasn't a normal person. I couldn't just go home when you were meant to go home. I'd cane it for 3 days. I'd be in a hotel room, borderline schizophrenic, paranoia, and then it would be me wife, me kids, me mum and dad worried sick. But like you see, you go back to work and they're like, fucking hell, 3 days he was on it, legend.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you get this bravado, you get that, it fills your ego again, and you're like, comes the next Friday, you're like, it wasn't that bad, I'll just maybe just have the one.
You become a character almost that you're trying to, and the problem is you're that, you sort of, it's living like a dual life, isn't it?
And you don't know
duality,
what's
isn't it?
real and what's not.
And what is real, and the madness and the fog in the brain, it's just like...
And then you've got this whole bravado of how you portray your life on social media and how you think others are saying. So I'd always have this image, I would think, they think this, who are they? When really, people they don't care. Like, and I would think, oh, my old set of friends, if they see me now, I've put weight on, I'm a raging, like, addict and this, that and the other, and I think, right, I'll take steroids and I'll look really good. So if they see us, think he's doing well for himself. I was in more pain than I ever have been, but I had to fulfill this bravado and put on a show to the rest of the world when realistically no one else is watching. It's just all up there in your own head, and it's a scary place.
We literally just talked about that exact point about your perception. What drives a lot of anxiety is about, you know, what are they going to think? I go into this room, everyone's going to be looking at us. 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, nobody gives a shit.
No one cares.
You know? And that's an interesting point about your friends and whatnot, because you will find this, and this is sometimes a barrier for people for getting past addictions and making those steps, because they're worried about what their life's going to look like on the other side. You know, am I going to be able to have fun? Am I going to lose these friends? And the harsh reality of it is, you might just. But in the end of the day, when you look at it, they're not your friends for the right reasons.
Nah,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm sure you've been on that journey, all three of you.
Exactly.
100%.
It's I think it's refreshing to the fact that when you get past your own insecurities and you get past your own shame and guilt and everything else that you're going through when you first walk into to some form of addiction and try and deal with that, you find out who your true friends are, because your phone wouldn't go, your phone wouldn't ring, or messages wouldn't come through and how you're doing, or what you're up to today. I was actually getting messages, oh well, you don't drink anymore, so there's no point in inviting you along, so to speak. Like, that's, and they're supposed to be friends from school.
Like, you've lost your place in society.
Exactly, aye. Like, I haven't
defined
changed.
you,
I've changed as a person, but for the better. So if anything, you should be inviting us along to be there and just to enjoy the actual date for whatever that occasion is. But
in a weird way, in a paradoxical way, sometimes it's a mirror, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if you and your mate are cutting through the town like thick as thieves, and you live in that lifestyle and a bag and a booze and 3 days, and then one of you turns your back on it, steps back and says, no, you know, like, often the other one might push back at that, because really you're showing a mirror. And if that person's not ready to face and look in that mirror, then, you know, he's a fucking boring cunt now. Anyway, fuck him.
that's it. That's exactly it. Boring cunt.
Yeah.
That's a strong point. You say that a lot, don't you? Because nobody wants to face
But
it.
you have to be strong in the face of that to continue, because the short-term pattern is that person is not going to have the... Because what we talked about earlier, Craig, there, about that stirring moment that you've had, they haven't had that yet.
Yeah.
And then they won't have that perspective to understand the journey that you're about to embark on. They might look from afar. You might have some of those people you're talking about now seeing you in that sea, seeing how you look now, seeing you with your kids.
Yeah, I do
and it
now.
might start to click a little bit, and maybe over the course of time, they might hit that moment, or that might stir in them, and changes might happen. And it is as much as it's difficult to face your shame in that, there's a sense of hypocrisy, and like you think, fucking, what was I doing? And you can't beat yourself up too much either, because we're just trying to find our way, aren't we?
We're just humans, aren't we?
Well,
Everybody makes
what it
mistakes.
strips back to. Talking about humans, and obviously you've got shared experience, and you go to these groups every week. Is there something that you see with the people that are struggling with addiction? Is there something in common in terms of personality? I know you obviously must have like quite an addictive personality, but is it quite often the case when you strip it back? Is there something that people share in common that's probably led them to that point, or is it more often than not that it started off where it's not been an issue and then it's just got out of control? Or is there anything you can sort of pinpoint?
I've got two sort of ideas in my head, but don't know whether they're the right reasons. But I guess first one, trauma.
Yeah,
I feel like if someone's had trauma in their life, that tends to be the reason that they relapse, because they're not actually dealing with the issue itself, and they're not stripping it back and doing the inner work on themselves. But I think the second point is there's a thing in common with us three, that is that we've all decided to stop drinking as well, especially with the gambling side of the addiction, because for me, I used to do a lot of me gambling when I was pissed.
Yeah, it's inhibitions, isn't it?
Betting on just ridiculous things, and then getting like wongas and quick quids and payday loans. And I feel like, for me, you know, you hear stories of like, I went to the pub and then I went on the bandit, and you're like, well, if you know that the bandit's there, do you know? Yeah. So I feel like if you're cutting out, I don't want to say bad things, because obviously people can do them in moderation, but like, for me, I feel like you have to deal with your demons and your traumas, and then you have to literally cut everything out. For me personally, it's just... It's alright saying that I want to stop gambling, I want to stop drinking, but I feel like you have to do a lot more work to it.
Yeah, even in a simplistic form, for people that are listening here, you know, you go back to like diet, you want to eat better, right? And you might have nailed it, but you go out for a few beers, first thing you want to do is go for a takeaway, and then you all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, oh, I'm hungover, you're craving carbs, and then a bad decision or a bad day turns into a bad week, and then before you know it, you've sacked everything off and you're just back into that. You know, I'm speaking from experience here, because this is what happens with me. It's just
likewise.
rinse and repeat. And a common denominator often is a big night out, you know, and it does lead you down the path of other things, doesn't it? But
I think a lot of it, or what, not everyone's different. Everyone's got a different story. We walk into the rooms, but what I see a lot of is people hiding from their own pain and emotion because I didn't know how to express emotions, whether that was good, bad, sad, angry, and I was frightened of experiencing any emotion, so I would run from those emotions, and that would always lead to drink, drugs and gambling. And then what Craig said, I think a lot of the lads who that say yes, we're giving up the gambling, but then the drink will probably start picking up, because then the masking, they haven't got that escape from the gambling to numb that pain anymore. So then the drinking will take the forefront. That'll become the front runner, and then the inhibition's lower, and then they slip up again. I think that's a common theme we see. But
It's really interesting.
I think
interesting.
that's the problem with a lot of blokes, is I think we do struggle with our emotions, and like Trev mentioned, that word vulnerability, like petrified to show any sort of vulnerable, because that meant not man, because I've got to be the father figure, I've got to be the husband who provides, and I don't show any weakness because it's my job to protect. And all that pressure, and if you don't talk about it, because I never had these two, I never had any other friends, it was just me alone in my head, and it's all going to hit the boiling point, and when that floodgate opens.
Can I ask a question? So, your upbringings, right? Obviously, Trevor, what was your upbringing like? When we're talking about now, we've alluded to our kids and our relationships, and us as men in the northeast here, where maybe not being in a culture where we're encouraged to express ourselves. What was it like for you growing up, and what are the differences now with your kids? What do you try to promote now with your kids?
I grew up in Scotswood, over the West End in Newcastle. And for anyone that's from here, it's quite a rough area, or at least it has been over the years. My childhood, it was surrounded by addiction constantly. I grew up with a mother that done the best she could for the children, because 3 of us grew up without a father. And things weren't easy back then for her or for my family, but me family in particular, they are all surrounded in addiction, each and every one of them, and it's hard to see, especially when you come away from it all.
Is it recognised addiction with them? Do they know they're in that? Or
No, some of them don't. Some of them don't.
Just
it's just the
lifestyle.
life. It's just the
Lifestyle.
life that they lead and portray and were brought up in, and to
Coping strategies
everyone,
and
it's
just,
that's life.
Normal's
That's
normal,
life,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Normal is normal, exactly. So, and it's heart wrenching, devastating, and also painful to watch, because you can't do anything. You can't say the right thing. You can't try and support somebody that doesn't want to help. You can't reach out and give advice when you know that potentially they need it, because anybody, as we know, that's stuck in addiction, once they're in the addiction, they won't listen.
Have you found that your relationships with your families become strained or fractured since you've took that step and you started to work on you?
I think it was before then, to be honest with you. I was trying to lead a different life, and even though I was not trying to be anything like my family, I realised I was probably one of the worst in my family. Even though I came away from it all, because, like the lads have said there, dealing with past traumas, dealing with issues that have occurred previously in life, you try to avoid it. You try to, rather than dealing with it, and you try to working on it, you mask it up, and you form all these addictions to try and hide away from your insecurities.
And with your children now, then, obviously, I mean, without being too personal, how old are your kids, Trevor?
My boy is 9 and my daughter's 12, going on to, my son's 8, 9 next month, my daughter's 12, 13 in October.
And so your journey where you've turned a corner has been what? So they've had some life where you were prior to where you are now. Before you turned a corner, they've had you.
So I have my children half of the time, because from a previous relationship that I was in for 14 years.
Yeah.
So I see my kids on a Monday, drop them off at school on Tuesday, pick them up Wednesday, drop them off Thursday, pick them up Friday, keep them half a day on a Saturday. I did see them Sunday when little man had football, till he didn't want to do football anymore. So I see them half of the time.
Yep.
Now, during my addictions, that half of the time I was sober, although I was paying for the repercussions of what I'd done the day before.
Yeah, so kind of present but absent.
Yeah, exactly, present but absent. But my kids have never seen me drink. They've never seen us touch
So
drug.
you've always consciously, even before the cold water, before the real kind of epiphany, you had that in you.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
because
That's
of the
amazing.
childhood that I was brought up. Drink, like you say, is so common, and everybody was surrounded by it. I was surrounded by it from everyone in my life of growing up. It was just so chaotic, and I vowed that I would never allow my children to grow up and watch that sort of atmosphere.
But that masking though becomes exhausting, doesn't it? When you are going through something and you're essentially trying to lead a double life, aren't you? Like sober dad, but in the background there's all these
Yeah,
things
you're carrying
going on.
all these hats, aren't you?
Yeah, and
That's you're going to work on a day-to-day basis, and you're carrying a different hat, and then you're portraying that you want to be somebody else, and it's just one big whirlwind that you just constantly spiral around until the shit hits the fan.
Do you feel, and this is just a theory that is coming to my mind, do you feel that a lot of people with addiction might think that once they've just stopped doing that thing, like, right, I haven't drank for a week, I've kicked it, but like you say, delving deeper into that, the psyche and the trauma and everything that you've pushed down and condensed, when they start doing that, because that is probably the most difficult thing, isn't it? Where you face your demons for the greater good.
Yeah.
But when they start getting into that, is that where you might see a lot of people where they go back and they're like, oh, actually, I don't think I'm ready for this, or they didn't realise just how tough that's part of it. It's not just the physically picking up that drink or playing that band.
Yeah.
It's everything that comes with it.
It's such a common theme that I've come across being in the rooms, and it's that a lot of people try to come in and do the better thing and obviously want to change, but they're not willing to change their surroundings, so they're still trying to be the same person with the same people, with the same
And it's very difficult to
gatherings.
be a healthy fish in a poison pond.
Yes.
I heard that once, and
Exactly.
that always stuck with
That's
me.
brilliant, that.
Yeah,
That is brilliant.
yeah, that stuck with me.
That's
that.
right. Like.
Yeah.
And equally though, on the flip side of that, and I've experienced this, I had a lot of shit going on, and I thought it was a product of my environment, which partially was, but
Nurture and nature, yeah.
I actually left and went to the other side of the world thinking that if I left that environment, everything else was going to get better. Then all these things kept coming and got worse. And I'm thinking, that was the point for me when I look in the mirror and I go,
There's a common denominator.
yeah, these problems have followed me to the other side of the world.
That's part of
Maybe
that journey. That's what's wonderful about that journey, isn't it? Is you had, and again, I alluded to it earlier. Luckily for us, we have something emotionally in us. Roughy tufty lads. I'm a roofer. You're a bricklayer. I don't know what you lads do, but But there was something in us. There was an emotional
intelligence,
something that was enough, that was creeping and talking to us and creeping and talking to us. And eventually, whether it was you getting up and going, I went up and left. You guys have all turned your back on environments and things. Some people just, whatever that little trigger is, or that gene, or that bit of DNA, I don't know what it is. Sometimes, people don't ever get that feeling that normal is normal is normal. I don't know what you're talking about. You're mad. Do you know what I mean? What about you, Graham? What was your upbringing and what's it like now for your kids?
Very, very loved. Had a very loving family, a big family. We had like grandmas, granddads, uncles, aunties. They were massive. We all got together Christmases. Had a beautiful childhood. Very hard working. Both parents worked full times. My dad had 2 jobs. He would drive the buses through the day.
Yeah.
I had my own house key from such a young age. I was so independent. I think I was year 5 at junior school. Had my own house key. I'd come home, put a tin of spaghetti in the microwave. Just very
So 10 years old, you're doing it? Yeah.
9, 10. Before that, I would finish school, wait at the bus stop for my dad to drive past as he drove the bus, and then I'd jump on his bus and I'd stay on his bus till he finished his shift. Other than that, it was being in the nursing home with my mum, with old people and that, and one of them gave us a Maltese, and I wasn't a Maltese. So it was the bus. The bus was the better option, even though I was travelling. But I just grew up like work hard, and even through all my addictions, I've always held down a full-time job.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of days on the sick here and there when I did go on these 3-day benders, but that's all I've ever known is hard work. My dad and his brothers loved the punt, loved the gamble, but never there a problem. You know, my dad would give himself pocket money, and he gambled that, and he just happened to be good with the horses.
But that's a rarity.
Oh yes, aye.
You know, I've got lots of mates who like the horses. You always, you know, it's that old saying, innit? You always hear when they get a winner, but you think, well, are you just backing winners every 6 weeks? You know, obviously, yeah, you don't tell about your losses, do you? It's always just like, I've just won 800 quid, and you're thinking, how often are you doing this? Because that's quite an obscure bet that you've just thrown in the group chat.
My mum and dad always made sure we got a holiday abroad. Any extras on top of that would either be through a win on the horses or because my dad would get an extra work on the side.
Right.
So my brain always had this, if you're struggling for money, you either work a little bit harder or you get a bet up. And that's, but I never heard about a loss. Like for me, it was like, there is no losing. It's a no-lose scenario.
That's a really interesting point, actually, yeah.
My dad was like, he gave himself pot of money, and it was just always a couple of quid and a lucky 15.
Was it though? Could there be more to it? Is he ever going to admit to that? I mean, that's a generational thing as well, isn't it? They'll never tell you that.
Exactly. But and I would never ever blame my dad or my uncles. But I remember my uncles would say, "Come press the bandage for me, you're lucky." And I loved it. And that ultimately that was me. Like,
and do you think it was the gambling itself and pushing that button, or do you think it was the being brought in by your uncles, by being in that ritual?
I felt
it could
like
have been anything.
Special.
It could have come bake bread with me. It could have been that. But the fact that an elder is pulling you in, and you know,
it was a mixture of when I won for them and I seen the joy and delight to give them, and then they'd buy rounds and everything, and I'd be like, that was me.
Yeah,
I felt like this.
That's affirmation, isn't it?
Of like, I'm special. I can't lose here. Like, and
that's not done with the worst. They haven't done that with bad intentions, have they? You know, like, it's not like, let's get this kid hooked on gambling. Like, it's just like, you know,
it's like a strange side effect, isn't it?
I've got a photo on my phone where I'm doing the exact same to my daughter before I got into recovery. There's a photo of me on a bandit with a pint. My wife took it from the back of us, and I'm letting her press.
It's almost like a love language. It's almost, well, it is, I would imagine. It is a form of love language.
Yeah,
it's
acceptance, I love this when I was a
community.
kid. She's going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strange though, isn't it? And then have you reflected on that, and do you look at that photo and go,
aye, now I've gone through what I've gone through, aye, but
then I imagine you would apply that in different ways now, isn't it? Because I think that's a big thing for me on my journey, has been incorporating my kids in as much of my life as I possibly can, knowing that it's a finite little window. By the time they're 12, you know, dad is dad. Go on out my room and all that, and you know, you're kind of letting go and they're flying, aren't they? You know, I'm getting there now. Mine are 10, 9 and 7, and
it's two different worlds now though. So back then there was no podcasts where men would sit in this room like where they were now and talk about gambling addiction or drink addiction. It never existed almost. Like you would never hear. So like, as far as my dad and my uncles were concerned, they were doing absolutely nothing wrong, because they probably, there's probably a couple of lads on the building site who would blow the pay slip every Friday, but not to the extent you see people getting themselves
there's
into
a discipline
now.
To it.
And but now, like, we've got a much broader understanding of the troubles and what, so we can kind of educate our children better and kind of know what is right and what is wrong.
I'm going to use that analogy of the photograph with a bandit, but you know, this could be about a number of things. And I think what's important, harking back to what we were saying about you being in the water and your family being there, and there'll be a photograph of you with your daughter coming out to sea, showing her the positive things you're doing now. And I think as human beings, we like to look back on those photos of the bandits and beat ourselves up and be like, oh, fuck. But we don't look at the photographs at the beach and go, yeah, like, yeah, I unknowingly, I did do something. And I think we need to be have a more positive voice with it when we talk to ourselves. And this is something that's been really hard for me. It was one of the best bits of advice I ever got off a psychotherapist. And they were like, look, you know, he talked about the parent, adult, child, and healing your inner child and all that. And he was talking about my son. He was like, would you ever talk to your son or anyone that, you know, through the work I do, who come and talk to us where they're struggling, would you ever talk to them people the way you talk yourself in your own mind? And I was like, Jesus. And I've got to think about it every day. You know, when I get in that mental train of thought where I just start beating myself up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold on, Ray, what are you doing good? You know what? There's a hell of a lot of things you're doing great. Yeah, you're doing it, and I snapped myself out of it, and it's that awareness. But I think it's really easy to look back on things and go,
What was I doing?
Yeah, and I think you've got to be really conscious of that and give yourself a pat on the back about where you're at now. It's a real big thing for going forward.
It's weird because me and my sister were 6 years apart, but I was always my mum and dad was so loving, like always worked so hard and made sure we both had everything. We both got very similar upbringing, even though the 6 years difference. But Christmas mornings, I was the hyper, the so emotional one, ripping presents open, couldn't wait. Whereas my sister would just be peeling the sellotape off carefully and taking her time and didn't show as much emotion. But yet she's the one who now runs a youth club and helps kids talk about drink and drugs.
Oh,
and
more power
brings
to your
in
sister,
people,
man.
and she works closely with the police and getting kids off the street. She dedicates so much of her own time, and yet she was just the laid-back child who didn't really show much love or emotion. But she still does. She just doesn't display it the way I did. Whereas if you would look and you think, who's going to go either way? I think a lot of people would say, well, it's the quiet one. Whereas me, who was the brash, the outlandish one, really should wore my heart on my sleeve. But it was me that ended up going the total like we couldn't be two. It's weird. We had the same upbringing, but
That's another
two
good insight
entirely different people.
to as we're growing up, though, as well, isn't it? I think when you really start to discover like how we view and see the world, well, how the fuck does he not realise if he does that, that's going to lead to that? You know, and then you slowly start realising, oh God, we're all coming from the same household with a completely different personality and perspective on the same thing.
Well, you've got 3 kids.
Yeah. Oh, chalk, cheese, and fucking goat's milk.
That baffles me. Like, I've got 2 lads, and you think, right, you think, oh, they're going to be the same. And then they come out and they've just got their whole
Totally different.
personality. It's,
Yeah.
You're laughing because you do.
No, it's because I got 2 and they're just like, this one is like the devil, one's like the angel, you know.
So they can maybe swap roles in later in life. Right?
So what about with you, Craig, then? What about your upbringing, your background, and then how you've sort of gone about it?
Do you know what it is,
yours?
right? Obviously, since he's been talking, I've been like just like zoning out and thinking about it. And my childhood was like really good, but I have hardly any memories of anything.
Right.
So there's a particular moment which I'm still not like comfortable speaking about. But I want to sort of assure the person that it's not their fault. But I had to sort of like deal with something when I was like 15. And I guess I didn't look back until I spoke to a friend who was a counsellor last year, and he said what you were doing was just surviving. And I firmly believe that that's what I was doing. I was just doing the gambling to suppress all the feelings and that was
Medicate.
happening.
Yeah.
So obviously that incident happened, and I'd just like to say obviously the person is now 14 years from alcohol, so I'm dead proud. But I went to pubs with my uncles, and like back then obviously I got the beard and that, and I could get in the bar at like 12, and
we've all had a mate like that, haven't we?
But I remember clear as day. There was a horse race. It was like a Scoop 6 it was called, and you would pick 6 horses that were like televised on the day, and you get 3 points for a winner, 2 for a second, and it was only £1, and there was like a jackpot of £1,000, and I remember I entered, but I wasn't at the pub that particular day. I just like sort of rang my uncle and told him to put them on for us, and the last race, there was 9 people still left in, and obviously I was one of them, and the favourite won, and 8 of the blokes that were in the bar that were jumping up and down thinking they'd won, and I had the outsider that won.
Right.
So I won £1,000 at the age of 15 of
Wow.
£1. And I always say that was never the catalyst, but obviously it had a little play, like, you know what I mean? It would have been back in my mind thinking, you've just won £1,000 off £1.
This is all right.
Feeling
Aye.
you know the feeling of it.
Aye.
It's a buzz, isn't it?
Aye, but I feel like I've had so many moments in my life which have like sort of given us an excuse to date. Like I had a daughter at the age of 18, and tough moments, like really tough moments when I look back, and I suppose I haven't given myself enough credit to get to the point that I'm at, and I think you say self-critical and all that, but when I talk about the impact it's had on my kids, my daughter, she's from a previous relationship, but I talk about the things I've done. I've just recently done a presentation for a high school in regards to gambling addiction and the links between gaming, online gaming.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
And it got put into our class. And she sent us a message saying, "Oh, Dad, I've just learned about you today." I said, "Right, you want to be a bloody expert?" And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Talking about vulnerability, right? Showing that, and knowing your kid's going to watch it, you know, and it's raw. This is who I was, and this is your dad, you know.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I had to ask her. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to just sort of like submit it and go, "Look, you're going to be learning about this." You know, I wanted to make sure she was all right. And she was like, she said this massive message, right? And I thought for a 15-year-old girl, it's unbelievable. Like she said, like along the lines of, "Why should I be ashamed of you? Like I'm proud of you. Like you're not that person anymore. You're this person." And like when we talk about characters, I think from the age of 15 to 31, I was that character every day. Whereas like now I'm looking in the mirror and I'm seeing the real Craig, and that's the difference. Do you know what I mean? Like I was the lying piece of shit, and you know who stole and whatever else. And now I can like look in the mirror and go, "Nah, you're decent." You know what I mean? Like I'm not perfect. I still shout. I still get anxiety now and again, and this, that, and that. But the difference is I'm aware about it. I'm trying to do something about it. So,
and that's all you can do, isn't it? You know, it's cliche, isn't it? You can't change the past, but you can try and be better for the future. And as difficult as your past might have been, and some of the decisions you made, that's the only mantra you can live by, because it's the only thing that's really important, isn't it?
yeah.
And no, I think that's it. In terms of role models, that's all I think we ever want to be. And I want to just ask one question. We talked about it earlier a little bit, and I think one thing that does lead into the lad culture and maybe is into these addictions and whatnot, there might be people listening that are struggling with this and not really understand. And this is something I really struggled with growing up, is what is it to be a man? You know, what makes a man? And I thought growing up that it was drinking, fighting, you know, join boxing gyms, the footy, gone out shagging and being one of the lads. That makes you a man. What is it that makes you a man? Because we're all sat in this room now. We've all been through.
Do you know what I think? And this was part of my coming to, and it's really broad, but it's, for me, it's just telling the fucking truth.
Yeah.
Honesty.
Telling the truth. And it starts, like you said before, all three of you guys, to yourself, which often if you have had a path that's come off the track a bit and you've, you know, caused a bit of force and you've got some shame and some guilt attached to yourself, telling yourself the truth there, liberating that, that's all you want to do then outwardly. You want your children to see the truth. You want your family, anybody you care about, anybody in the wider world. Is just, and that's good, bad, or ugly. The raw, cold, hard truth. I think for me, that's what being a man, as you just said there, Craig. When you look in that mirror, you don't see that lying, cheating, shortcut, fucking, you know, kid that I used to see when I looked in the mirror. I can now look in the mirror and go, yeah, I get shit wrong all the time, and I still fucking short-tempered, and I'm still fucking shouting at the dog, but I'm trying, and I know I'm trying. I'm trying, and as you said there, Ray, like, my past is behind me. It's part of who I am. I've got scars all over my body. I wouldn't change it because I'm blessed that I had that feeling, that moment, that introspection to help me turn it round. And today, I just try and fucking stay as truthful as I possibly can, whether that's going to harm me even. Do you know what I mean? If I have to come to terms with something.
Yeah.
For me, that's what it is.
And that's what we're trying to do, innit? We're trying to teach our children that what it is to be a man isn't what we've had these perceptions or what there's been in the media, or all this bullshit, you know, and try to be a better version of yourself where you can sit down. And for an example, like my boy, talking about quitting football, you know, I had a lad and I thought, right, he's going to go into football and all that. So I took him there at the age of 2. Like, anybody else looking at it being like, this kid's not interested, but I'm like, no, he's going to play football, you know. And you know, and I kept going and I kept going, and then he's like, maybe I'll go to this other club. So we went to this other club, and he's walking along, and I could see that the walking got slower, and he's, you know, there's some of these kids are pretty good, and they're all running around getting each other in headlocks and all that, and the walking stopped, and I looked in his eyes, and I just thought, right, this is a moment, and I said, "Are you all right, son?" And he looked at me, And he said, no, Dad, I'm nervous. And I'll be honest with you, right? I wouldn't have ever said that to me dad.
No.
I'd have been terrified because I'd have looked, I would have been shit myself at what he'd have said. My dad's not a bad bloke or anything, but, you know, generations. And I got down on his level and I looked him in the eyes and I said, look, son, it's okay to feel nervous. I would be nervous if I was here now. And I was like, if you don't want to do this, we go home. If but if you want to go and you give it 10 minutes and you don't like it, that's absolutely fine. Next thing, he's off.
That there is the epiphany of what it is we're trying to do, isn't it? And you're starting it at that fucking big. Like, talk. It's okay. I feel like that too.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to try it. And then because they feel safe and secure, they will try it.
Yeah.
And they might come off after 10 minutes, but then you've put a foundation down there of your communication and your reciprocation as they grow, which they will then take. So I love that. That is so fucking powerful.
Yeah, and that was a moment where, you know, where I talk about where you look at these things and you think what you're trying to do and how far you've come. And it dawned on us. I was like, wow, that was a one of those moments, you know. And I try to behave in that way, and sometimes, like you say, I don't get it right.
Oh,
One of the times I don't get it right,
Drop the
but
ball.
I try, you know. And we're all men sat here, and we're all men that are open, and we talk, and we admit that we fucked up.
What happened, Ray? What happened to you son after that conversation?
He didn't stick it out. No, but he come away and he had a good session. But I just thought, you know, I've broken down that barrier where he knows he can tell me I'm still his dad.
Yeah.
And you know, but he can tell me, Dad, I don't feel okay.
I was going to say, given what we know now, would you rather have a 7-year-old who's been playing football for 5 years, who's dead Andy, who can tell everybody he's going to be at fucking Newcastle him, or a kid who can communicate with compassion, with no fear?
Yeah.
I know which one I'd choose.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
You know,
As in the past, if you hadn't had this coming to, you might have went, stop being soft, get yourself in there, man. That would have
the exact conversation.
That would have been our old, because that's
Yeah.
all we knew beforehand.
Yeah.
It would have been, what are you crying for? Don't you should get yourself nervous? What are you nervous about? Like, that would have been us, but now we know what we know. We can be honest and say that.
Get in there and get a strong tackle in, lad.
and this
Give him a smack in
conversation,
the back of the head. Go on.
there'll be men in transit vans now driving to work, listening to this, right? Who are us.
Mm-hmm.
And you might have said something today that's really sat with someone and gone, that's me, that. I felt that. I'm doing that. That's my life. It's happening right now. It's not just us, you know, bringing up our offspring and the young children around us, like as we alluded to earlier, lads like you. I mean, if us 5 walk down the street now, people will fucking cross the road, won't they? Do you know what I mean? But should they
look like a really bad boy band, don't they?
But it should
Got the microphones out.
yeah. But should they hear us talk?
The wrong direction.
If they heard this conversation, you know, those what would you say, archetypes, the judgments we talked about earlier that you've thrown out now.
Stereotypes.
Yeah, maybe they would be, you know, and that's what I hope this podcast is doing. But Ray, I know you've got a couple of poignant questions you like to ask, and
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just that on that point, if you want to see the change, be the change. And you said before, we're not changing the world, but if everybody takes that approach and they start to try and change their world and the people around them, then that's going to have a domino effect, isn't it?
Oh,
and it is going to change the world. It's going to change it.
Look at your daughter. You like having that message from her and her saying she's proud of what you've been through, what you've done. She's at that stage where you started your gambling all those years ago.
Wow.
She's at that age now, if you
That's
think of
perspective,
when you
isn't it?
put that bet on. But she's got this totally different perspective.
And she's going to be at the age of meeting a young man soon. I know you probably don't want to ever think about that, but she's going to. All right. Yeah, but her perception of a man now, she sees what a man is. He's honest. He's open.
yeah, and I'll not
He
accept
can be-
anything less than that.
Yeah. And she's not gonna. And hopefully down the line, when you meet this bloke and you go, "Aye, she's." Yeah, and it's powerful stuff. But the questions I do want to ask you, I suppose I'll ask you individually. We ask everyone that comes on the podcast. You're all local lads. I know you love the region, and you go in the water, and you find the great benefits from that. And we're so lucky to have it on our doorstep. We've got the countryside and great running tracks, and the people. I love the people in the northeast. I'm sure you do as well. But when you look at it statistically, we are struggling big time with mental health.
Yeah.
And if you look at the UK, we've got some of the highest suicide statistics in the UK. And what I like to ask everyone that comes on is, why is that? You know, why is it that we're viewed as some of the friendliest people in the UK? Everyone will always tell you, oh, it's a great place to go and have a weekend there. And I love living here. Having been fortunate, I've travelled extensively. I love the North East. I love Northumberland. Why are we struggling so much?
Because being a Geordie lad, you've got that ego behind you that's already portrayed, haven't you? You've got
wear
that
the mask
ego
of a Geordie.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
we've got the rowdiness, we've got the drunkenness, the states, we're big burly lads, and everybody loves a Geordie.
Yeah.
But not many Geordies go and have a drink and actually don't drink. They don't go out and socialise and, oh, sorry, I don't drink. All of a sudden, you're a foreigner.
Yeah.
And that's my perspective,
Wow,
perspective of what I've got from it. Are
So
you
it's
actually a
living up to
Geordie?
this perception
Yeah.
of like, you cannot be a bloke in the North East if you don't do all these things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe that's leading to...
Social media has a massive impact on it. Look at Geordie Shaw, for
God.
instance.
Yeah.
Like, if we want to get into that rowdiness and the way that they're portraying Geordies to be, and the men on there as
And
well
the
as
women.
the women.
The women as well. Yeah.
It's this big perception that people, kids of our days, want to live up to, because
Yes.
now they've all got the fame, they've got the cars, they've got the lifestyles, and they've got it through being that type of archetype.
Yeah.
So it's an easier concept and an easier route to go down
You live up to the stereotype of a Geordie.
in their eyes, yeah.
And you felt that in...
Mm-hmm. And even in recovery now, when I have been in recovery, and I had to do a couple of nights away when I started my last new job, someone actually said, "What, a Geordie who's sober?" Never met one of them.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I was like, a quick little thought in my head, like, am I doing the right thing? Because
Yeah, that
But it's-
doubt creeps in.
it's bullshit, egotistical, wearing a mask, playing up a stereotype. Like, and that's why we're trying to break the stigma. Like,
I love it. I
100%
love you
brother.
breaking the
And-
stigma.
And you know, the other way you can think of that, and it's all about perceptions, isn't it? Where he goes, I've never met somebody like that, and you go, yeah, great.
No,
I'm gonna
you
take
have.
pride in that.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, you have. I'm a fucking
Yeah.
trailblazer, eh?
Don't
Yeah, well,
get
nice
us
to
wrong
meet you,
though.
mate, yeah.
Earlier on in the days, I thought, shit, am I doing the right thing? Because you question yourself, even though you're on this path and you know you should be doing all the right things. You do question yourself, and it's very easily taking you off course to go back into the rut you were in because of the ego and the
And
Social
again, does this,
expectation.
and
Yeah,
does this go
expectation.
back to like, yeah, what you're worried about people's perceptions of you?
Mm-hmm.
Because you think, if I stop drinking, are they going to think I'm weird? Like, I once worked with a guy on site, right? This is God's honest truth. He said to me, he said, if I meet a bloke and he doesn't drink, gamble, or like women, I'd be seriously concerned about him if he hasn't like got one of those things and he's and his character, and he's like, oh, I'd not be able to be mates with him enough, like, crikey, go and give it all three then. He's starting to drink and tin, he's gambling on the fruities and that. And, what a best to be. Yeah, but it is, isn't it? It's, and then people like I looked up to, you know, and I think, oh God.
And why do you look up to someone like him? That's the crazy thing.
Isn't
Why
it?
are we trying to impress?
So we need different role models, don't we?
Aye, we don't even know his.
we don't even know his background. So why are we trying to impress this guy? That's the insanity of it. Like,
Yeah.
we just because he's a bit older and he said this, you're thinking, well, we're not to live up
Well,
to
here's
this.
one for you then. So zoom out of this close context of being a Geordie and falling into the archetype of being a Geordie. Zoom out a bit. That's happening in every culture, everywhere, all the time. It's the human condition. We are a product of our environment. And I think what's empowering for me, certainly on my journey, has been realising that is a human trait. Whether it's a Scouser in Liverpool or a Geordie in Newcastle or a Glaswegian or a fucking keep going. What it really is like knowing that if you're seeking something healthy and well-meaning out of your life, a long-term return on your fucking short-term existence, like they're universal things like communication, looking after your body, like what about the things you're doing now? What does cold water therapy lead to? Leads to really good sleep and really good distribution of your hormones and your body and awareness of your body. Then you start making better choices about what you're eating. Your sleep's getting better. Now your mood's regulating better. Now your self-worth, your self-esteem is regulating better. Now you're much better at holding court in conversations and being sensitive and open, non-judgmental to like the whole proliferation of your character is then emanating out, you know. And like once you twig that everybody's trapped in their own skin, everybody's trapped behind their own eyes, looking out, trying to conform, trying to fit, trying to be something. Even if you can hold on to that, no, I'm gonna keep doing what I think's right, which is essentially look after myself and the people around me. That's so powerful, because so many people with that mask on are looking and going, shit, like we said earlier, that time might come a bit later for them, you know? Yeah. And then it takes lads like you to come forward and do what you're doing.
I just want, like, obviously, I think, like, a lot of the time, like you say, people are maybe scared to come out and want to change, especially up here as well. Like, we're being placed on such high a pedestal. That's why I mentioned before that I feel like we are actually making waves, a ripple effect, you know what I mean? Like, even if it's 10 people who stop and drinking, then we've done something about it. But, like...
Well, that's 10 families.
Exactly.
Benefit.
And then 30 people, and then friends.
And then a generation. And
they're going to have that impact on other people, and the list goes on, isn't it?
And I think as well, obviously, I'm not saying that it's a major problem in the North East, but I think, you know, when people get their wages, it probably doesn't cover everything that they need to, and then they blitz it all on drink, and then they have to borrow money, and then it's just a
vicious cycle. Yeah.
And like, obviously, it happens everywhere, but it seems to be so rife up here. I don't know the particular pinpoint, but I think like previous mentioned.
Well, do you know what, you lads, that answer for me, and we ask this every podcast to everybody. This has been the closest to what I feel and what seems to make sense to me is that archetype of a Geordie. Mm-hmm. And I've said it several times on this podcast, and I'm not from here. I'm from, and I would throw my hat in there now and say, you do a poll across the whole of the UK, who comes out on top when you ask people, like, who are the soundest people in the UK? Geordies are fucking right up there. And for you lads to hear you guys sort of say, like, you feel that in a sense of like it's something to live up to in a sense. That's a real insight to me, on top of the fact that we're in the North and the Industrial Revolution and the hard work ethic and all of that. It really that's as closer to the bone for me as I've heard a response to that, and that's really insightful. So I thank you for that.
So I've made my Instagram basically around my recovery, and I've made it to what a Geordie I feel like a Geordie should be.
Oh, wicked! Wow. That's insightful.
And that is just like the vulnerable, honest. Yeah. You know, like I tell people my bad days, tell people my good days, and like I've had so many people come out and say, like, you know, well done for being honest, and people even saying that they're struggling themselves, and that, like, I just want people to see that you don't have to be this person.
You know, that's not what Instagram's for. You're not allowed to show that the real world. It's
I'll probably get blocked soon. Like,
you can't have bad days on Instagram.
It sounds to me like you're telling the truth.
Like, I'm doing a challenge at the minute. I wanted to get up early for God knows however long, and I thought I'd just bite the bullet. I'm going to post me watch every morning that I wake up at a particular time. And I think out of 23 days, I've woke up probably about 18. So I've slept in 5. But it's 18 more times than I ever did. Yeah. And I've documented even the days that I slept in and the reasons for doing it. Yeah. And it's just like little things like that. Because you're a human being. Aye, but I'm doing it for myself as well, to show that even though I'm 3 years in, that I still need to be honest with myself.
You're accountable, yeah.
It's accountability.
So that's the reason I've done it. Like,
no, I love it. I love it.
I honestly love the story that he's brought and what he's doing. There's another question that sort of ties in, and I obviously, being the ice guys, I'm sure you're going to say cold water therapy, but if you could give any advice to listeners that's benefited you with your mental health, you know, maybe one thing different if you could. If they were listening, they're like, right, I'm looking for one thing just to take up.
Speak.
Yeah,
would be mine.
And speak.
You've got friends.
Right things.
You've got friends. You've got family. You've got associates. You've got colleagues. You've got someone. If this is going out across the radio, and obviously it's in a van. You've got the guy that you're travelling into work with. Something that's playing on your mind. If there's anything that's niggling away at you, where you feel as though you can't get up and do an honest day's work or face your family after work because of a certain scenario, stop it by speaking out about it and get the ball rolling in regards to getting the right help and support that you need to make the right choices moving forward.
More power, Trevor.
Trevor. I think I'm going to use a saying that I got told by someone, and it says, get out your mind and get in your body. And I think I really do struggle with anxiety and worry. And I even talked to them about it the other day. Just it seems to like go from 0 to 100. You know, catastrophizing. I could do a job and get it. Like, so I'd done Trevor's radiator, and it started leaking, and I was wondering, like, was it me?
Have I done
Like,
something
you know what I
wrong?
mean? They'd done something wrong.
Yeah.
And then when I ended up getting there, it was just like a 2-second fix. But I'd made it such a bad thing. So like now, whenever I try and have them thoughts, I've just downloaded an app called Unstuck, and it's basically trying to reframe your thoughts. So whenever I have a sort of episode like that, I type in what's happening, and then I just try and reframe it, and it's actually worked. So I went to a job yesterday, and like it was probably the worst bath taps I've ever changed, but like I didn't actually feel
That doom.
that doom because I hadn't put that into place. So I feel like getting out of my own head and just doing like the app breath work,
So that's an app called
Unstuck.
Unstuck, so listeners can
So you
find
can
that
apply
in the
for
App
it.
Store,
You
yeah?
can actually email the founder, and you can get it free for a year if
Wow.
you're suffering like from hardship, like financially.
Let's put a link into that.
Yeah, get a link. We'll link in.
Aye.
That's a really good
So
advice.
I basically just try to get out my own head because I feel like sometimes if I'm stuck in there, like I feel like a prisoner. Like I really do.
Well, yeah.
And it's a hard battle to get out of sometimes. But I just use the tools like the group chats and stuff like that. Really.
Oh, that's nice,
a
Craig.
great point, Craig.
And Graham.
There's loads you could say, but I'm going to go with open-mindedness, because I was so narrow-minded in the past. It was tunnel vision. It was the drink, the drugs, the gambling, living up to this stereotype. And I feel like if you're struggling with meeting the criteria of the world and looking a certain way on Instagram, doing certain things and becoming like a sheep almost, I think this is sort of the culture we're following. Don't be scared to step out, get comfortable being uncomfortable, try something new, and you know what? You might just enjoy it. Did I
man.
ever think I'd be going in the cold tea? Did I ever think I'd enjoy it? Nah, couldn't think of nothing worse.
Like there's a life outside of what you think
Of course there is.
the world is. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's so much out there, but because like running, right? I used to pump myself full of steroids, go to the gym, and as I was walking down the stairs to the weight room, see people running, and as I was coming up the stairs an hour later, they're still running. I'd be like, that's not good. So that's a bad. Sorry,
Yeah.
but honestly, that was I
Yeah,
was
it's the
so,
truth.
I was so against it,
Yeah.
and yet we just ran 5 hours together doing a marathon a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's crazy. Like you don't know what you're going to enjoy
You don't know
till
what
you
you're
tried it.
capable of, do you?
But because I just had this ego about us, and that's not me, I wouldn't do that. Just get like Craig was saying, get out yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
try something new, and you know what? That these things will improve your overall mind and mental health, and it might lead you thinking about your choices. Are you drinking too much? Are you gambling too much? That you don't know. But there's another life out there.
Oh,
just
man.
because it's not on social media and it's not documented, or it's not.
They're the best ones,
It's
mate.
not on
They're the
TikTok,
best lives.
Like, all this stuff's for free, you know.
What a strong message to finish on.
That is, man. And I'd just like to say, Trevor Graham, Craig, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely
No, pleasure.
I
awesome.
know we've just met a couple of you lads, but honestly, I'm so proud of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And you've obviously found like this really amazing friendship, and it's
Powerful stuff,
It's
isn't it?
powerful.
And all the young lads and the lads of our age, and I think the biggest demographic we've got is kind of our age range and just below, and then the 17 to 23-year-old lads as well. So you're all listening. Look, we're all roughy tufty. We're all boys. You don't lose your identity. You can just, like the boys have just said, open your mind, communicate, and think about your body. Get in your body. Use this beautiful landscape, and let's get better, eh?
Definitely.
big
Thank you,
love,
boys.
guys. Thanks.
Nice one, boys. Thank you. Peace.